If you've been subscribed for a while, there's a good chance you probably know that I'm a pretty big Mega Man fan. Despite being extremely familiar with all the main entries though, some of the more obscure stuff I actually haven't played myself, which is why last summer I decided to tackle Mega Man on the Game Gear. But even that isn't nearly as strange as the game I'll be talking about today. Did you know there was a Mega Man game built for MS-DOS and released officially for personal computers back in 1990? Oh, you did? Well, that's what we're talking about today, so strap in.
Okay, so I'm not really going to go into the history of this thing since it's already been extensively covered and I'm not the guy for that. That's Norm's job. But basically, the short version is this is sort of one of, if not the first fan projects to end up being released officially. A fan of Mega Man took it upon himself to try and make a PC version of Mega Man, and eventually it made its way out there in an official form. I will just be straight up right from the beginning and say that this is not good in any sense of the word, but that's not really the fault of the creator. Well, mostly. Some of it is. Point is, technologically, this game is actually pretty impressive, but outside of it being an impressive tech demo, there's really nothing of quality here. So let's get started. Before that though, real quick, if you like the video, consider subscribing. It actually helps a ton when you guys subscribe, so if you want to see more of what I do, click the subscribe button, and thank you. Now let's look at Mega Man for MS-DOS. So when you first boot the game up, you're thrown into an intro stage, and as mentioned in other videos about this game, this is actually the first Mega Man game to feature an intro stage. Mega Man intro stages are meant to teach the basic controls of the games to ease the player in before actually tackling a real stage. Unfortunately though, in this case, it isn't really an intro stage as much as it's just a long stretch of flat ground with an enemy that relentlessly attacks you and is way too fast to be able to comfortably take down. Also, if you even do manage to take it out, it just respawns endlessly anyway. You're basically better off holding right and booking it while constantly jumping to try to avoid damage. You're not going to make it out of here unscathed, but at the very least you'll be able to make it to the end of the stage without dying, if you're lucky. Once that's over with, we're given the traditional Mega Man Robot Master Stage selection screen with perhaps the dumpiest rendition of Mega Man I've ever seen, who looks about as apprehensive about playing through this shit as I am. So just like any traditional Mega Man game, there is a boss order with weapon weaknesses, but there's literally only one boss worth using his weakness on, and you're honestly just better off using the Buster, but I'll get to that later. The first level you should tackle is Dynaman Stage, and this is immediately infuriating. First of all, I forgot to mention this, but the game features no music, so that's cool. Not like music is like an important pillar of the Mega Man series or anything, but it's also not like Mega Man uses its music as a crutch or anything, so as long as the level design and controls are solid, we should be good to go, right? Well, this is some of the jankiest shit I've ever played, and I'm having a hard time recording my audio right now because I'm legitimately laughing thinking about this game and Mega Man's dumpy potato face. Okay, so Mega Man sort of controls right, but everything is just a little off. I can't really put my finger on it, but the first thing you experience in this stage is a straightforward, easy platforming challenge whose only difficulty comes from the fact that there's a flying enemy that relentlessly drops shit on you, and that's damn near impossible to avoid because the background is so busy that everything just blends in like one big mess of pixelated sensory overload. After that, there's this little conveyor belt section that had me already wanting to rage quit 2 minutes into the game. It's so touchy, and even the slightest mistake sends you falling into the abyss. I bet you wouldn't have expected this for the DOS version, but this game even has the disappearing blocks, everyone's favorite, made even more fun with non-smooth screen scrolling. Oh look, it's the drippy ceiling bullshit from Mega Man 2, only with more weighting, my favorite. Eventually you get up to the part that I swear to God is impossible to avoid taking damage from, and I have no idea how you can possibly get past this section without damage boosting. So there's these giant red ants that walk back and forth along the path you need to take with literally no room to jump over them and no way to attack them because they're too close to the floor. I do know that one of the Robot Master's weapons can take care of this, but as far as going through this with the Buster, I'm pretty sure you just have to eat the hits. That's the final challenge before Dynaman though, who is relatively a pushover with the Mega Buster. I will, however, be utilizing save states because there's no way in hell I'm gonna get through this without them. This game doesn't play fair, so neither will I. So Dynaman just kinda jumps around the stage lunging at you and occasionally drops bombs. He's not always easy to avoid, but this game has one extremely janky saving grace. The Robot Masters have no iframes. If you can manage to line up your shots well and unload the buster, the Robot Masters will eat every shot in rapid succession. This is hilariously bad, but it does even the playing field a bit, so I'm not complaining. As long as you're aggressive and focus on offense, you should be able to take him out quickly and earn yourself Dynaman's weapon ability, which apparently the game doesn't want to tell me the name of. Speaking of which, forgot to mention, I've been calling Mega Man's arm cannon the Mega Buster this whole time because, that's what it's called. Not in this game, though. In Mega Man DOS, it's called the Plasma Cannon. Well, damn, it's canon. I guess I can't argue then. Now this Marvin the Martian looking son of a bitch is weak to Dynaman's weapon, so he's up next. His name is Sonic Man, and he's this game's water robot master because of course this game needed a water level. The level is a series of tubes that connect different portions of the stage, each with its own janky little terrible challenge. Among these is a long water corridor where these fish enemies infinitely bombard you. It's incredibly tedious and annoying, but it is definitely pretty doable to get through this part unscathed. It's not until the next section that it gets truly frustrating. So the hitboxes in this game are all screwy, and up until this point I didn't really have a great example, but this part perfectly exemplifies it. There are these spots on the floor that are electrified and hurt you if you touch them. Typical Mega Man hazard, nothing surprising, but the hitbox makes absolutely no sense. Even when I think I couldn't possibly be contacting it, I do, and then Mega Man takes damage. Even after like 6 tries, I couldn't figure out where the hitboxes were through trial and error. I just don't understand. Still though, even with that considered, this is pretty tame as far as this game is concerned, and overall, this challenge isn't too bad. After that, we have another stupid disappearing block section, but besides being a little frustrating, it's not exactly too dangerous and more so just annoying. The only hazard if you fall is this eel thing, and it's pretty easy to avoid. It's just a lot of trial and error and it's tedious. After that, we take on Sonic Man, and like I hinted at earlier, this is a boss that it doesn't really make any sense to use his supposed weakness on. He's weak to Dynaman's dynamite weapon, but the weapon doesn't detonate on impact, and it's actually really difficult to damage him with it. It's much easier to just spam the Mega Buster given the lack of iframes. If you keep your cool and don't panic, he's easy to defeat, and then you'll get his ability. All things considered, as far as this game goes, this level isn't that difficult, but I still did need to save state quite a bit in the couple sections I mentioned. I'm not entirely sure I'd feel the same way if not for save states though, but this is definitely one of the lesser difficult parts of the game. Last up is Voltman, and once you enter his stage, your first big obstacle is a bird. No crazy robot with a flamethrower or a mechanical turret, just a f***ing parrot. In the first section of this stage, you'll have to traverse these power lines. There's a set of 3 of them on 3 different planes, and when you take damage, you drop down to the one below you. So you basically need to make sure you jump up if you get hit and also stay away from the bottom to avoid falling to your doom. After that, we're introduced to one of the more irritating aspects of the stage as a whole. There are these mosquito-looking enemies that fly around in a group in a circle towards you, and you need to take them out constantly as they respawn. While this is super annoying, it is at least a good way to farm for health and weapon energy if needed, so it's a double-edged sword, I guess. In this first section with them specifically, though, it's quite infuriating because there's gusts of wind that blow Mega Man around as you're trying to defend yourself, and every time you get hit, you get blown back and lose a bunch of ground and need to make your way forward again. All in all, though, it's not exactly the hardest thing, and it's just more so annoying than anything, really. However, this is not the last time this wind mechanic is used, and it gets much worse immediately. The next section might be the most difficult part of the entire game. So there are these flying bug enemies that periodically fly by and shoot at you. While this is going on, the game wants you to pass by these electrical fields that go off every couple seconds. This wouldn't be too hard if it wasn't for the fact that the wind mechanic is also used here, and on top of all that, for some reason, not only does the wind mechanic blow you forward and backward in this section, but for whatever insane reason, Mega Man's jump is also nerfed here, so you can't even effectively shoot the enemies before they attack you and send you backwards again. Now, it is possible for shots to connect with the bug enemies, but the window is so tiny and needs to be pixel perfect because Mega Man can only jump just high enough to get one shot in at the apex of his jump. Maybe. I had to reload the save in this section so many times that I honestly thought I was on the brink of just scrapping the whole video. It's that bad. Eventually though, somehow, by sheer force of will, I managed to persevere. Luckily, from there on out, it was pretty much smooth sailing. There was even a good spot with the mosquitoes to farm for health, and another block section which, while anxiety-inducing, wasn't really all that difficult. Now, Voltman is actually a pretty difficult boss, or at least he would be if you actually needed to learn his attack patterns. Luckily, when you combine his weakness with the lack of iframes, it's honestly laughable how quickly he can be taken down. Literal seconds. Now, in traditional Mega Man fashion, you know what's up next. Time for Wiley. Only this time, we don't really get Wiley stages, just the, Robot Master boss rush, but lacking the usual teleporters. There are sections in between the bosses, but they're pretty easy and mainly act as a means to farm a little more resources before taking on the next boss. In this stage, they, for some reason, did add Met and Sniper Joe, so that's kind of cool to see some familiar enemies, well, despite a palette swap anyway. And you don't even see Sniper Joe at all until literally right before the door that leads to Wiley. Kinda weird that they programmed an entire enemy just to use him for literally 3 seconds right before the end of the game, but whatever. I don't really care, it just seems like a waste. Now, Wiley himself is a total pushover and might be the easiest boss in the whole game. He has 2 phases and they are quite literally exactly the same. The only difference between his first and second phase, from what I can tell, is that his face is exposed in phase 2 and he gets another health bar. That's it. Basically, all you have to do is run back and forth, jumping over his attacks and shoot him in the face. That's the whole fight. Pretty anticlimactic, but honestly, it was a breath of fresh air considering how much of a pile of bullshit this whole game is. Beat Wiley, and the game ends. And of course, we end the game with some nice improper use of punctuation. A nice nightcap to end off this stellar experience. Alright, so there's no dancing around it. This entire thing is a pile of dog shit, and there's clearly a reason Capcom basically pretends as though it doesn't exist. Look, technologically, it's cool. They managed to sort of make a Mega Man game in MS-DOS, but dear God, is this not anything close to a decent substitute for the console games, and my heart breaks for any kid back in 1990 who heard about Mega Man, played this, and then thought this is what Mega Man was. And somehow, there's even a sequel for some reason whose numbered title makes literally no sense, so maybe I'll cover that one in the future. For now, though, I feel like I need a drink. Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it and want to see more, there's a couple other videos right on screen that you can watch. And if you want to see everything I upload, subscribe and then tap the bell icon. And if you want to help support the channel, I also have a Patreon right there too.